This is Left at the Door, a podcast and a vlog where we, a group of friends, get together and chat about the things that we left at the door in order to love, grow, succeed, or survive. And we also bring guests on so they can tell their story. And today we have a really special guest.
Normally our guests suck, but not today.
Not today. Today, it's one of the best.
Yay!
High expectations, I see. I
Yes.
appreciate it.
We set the bar really, really high.
This is my little brother. His name's Dylan. And why don't you tell the viewers and listeners a little about yourself and your life and stuff before we really dive in?
Yeah, I can do a little overview. Dylan, I grew up here in Central Illinois. Sullivan is my hometown. So about 4,400 people. Went to the University of Illinois after high school. Worked in Champaign for going on about a decade-ish or so before I relocated to Nebraska. Our little sister had moved out there, and I was free, so I went out there and spent some time with her and actually set up some roots and started working full-time there as well. So I currently now, everybody else has moved out there. I'm out there with my girlfriend Bailey and my dog Roger. So I currently work from home, so I live in a basement most of the time. But outside of that, yeah, I've been around. It's been interesting to move from state to state. That's an experience a lot of people, especially from like Central Illinois, don't go out and experience. So suggested. But yeah, no, that's kind of the highlights of my path so far.
Geographically, Illinois and Nebraska are pretty similar, but like, what are the biggest differences you've noticed, even living in Champaign, which is a much bigger town than we grew up in, and now living in Omaha?
The biggest differences between the two are really like just the people and their backgrounds and their histories. Growing up in a small town, Sullivan being really tiny, we had a very kind of unique little bubble in Central Illinois. At least I see it that way because we had arts, we had some, not diversity in race, but diversity in like people when it came to like what their interests were and things like, the theater. That was a huge thing. I grew up with people that were gay. Some of my friends from high school were that way. But, other small towns in the area, not the case. Yeah. They didn't have people that were capable of being open and doing those things.
Right.
Versus as soon as I moved to somewhere like Champaign, my freshman year of college, my roommate, he was Indian. Ravi, he was Americanized. He was a second generation, his parents were physicists in Chicago and things like that. So they moved here, and he was, their first child that they had in the States. So that was a shock for me because, really coming from somewhere like a little town like Sullivan, we were all white.
Yeah, it's pretty whitewashed.
There was probably less than 1% of the people were of other ethnicities, and then even some of them were not even from there. They came in for like China King. Like we had a Chinese,
right.
what I would assume was a Chinese family.
Since they serve Chinese food in a restaurant called China King, but who knows?
But that's what you get when you're young and you don't understand that. I never asked to understand who they were or what they were, so they were just Chinese.
They made great crab rangoon, though.
That is true.
Really
it feels like really, a lot of the only diversity that we had was from almost like a religious perspective. Like we neighbor with the Amish and whatnot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But really,
more white people, really.
It really was predominantly. And like you said, Dylan, a lot of small towns, you don't have that mix. And it wasn't just about, we just had a lot of options when it came to like, I think the theater
extracurriculars.
The theater brought a lot of that in, for sure.
I think, the theater cannot be promoted enough when it comes to actually bringing people from outside of our little bubble that we had and letting the people that were currently in the bubble do things that weren't normally expected of them.
We're talking about the little theater on the square, and we had Leonard Nimoy performed there. Who else?
I want to say
Judy Garland.
Right.
Thank you. I want to say Lucille Ball, but it was Judy
and
Garland.
remember there used to be that restaurant,
The Spot.
Yeah, and there was
the best biscuits and gravy ever.
I worked there on the weekends.
You worked at The Spot?
Yes,
I didn't know that.
Be there between 3:45 most mornings or 4. That's what it is. Like everybody else, like every other little high school kid is like sleeping in. And
I worked at Red Apple at those hours.
Yeah, you get it. But it was like one of those things where there's not a lot of options for kids to work. It was that or Pomida.
I worked at the Masonic Helm, which is now Mason Point. Yeah. So I did construction. I did maintenance out there. And then, for one summer, the next summer I did laundry, which don't recommend doing laundry for a
nursing home.
It makes you so grateful for those types
of I appreciate the people that are doing it.
Yes.
Like our aunt Janine was the one that kind of ran that department, and I worked with her that summer. And the summer before, I worked with Rick, who was kind of not the head of maintenance, but one of the higher ups there. So I was working with family, and it was just one of those things where you kind of get to see behind the curtains of what they do daily and who they're helping and who they're supporting and things like that. So I had a lot of respect for them, but man, I could not clean those bed pads anymore. It was torture. Yeah. But then also, it was a fun experience because I was getting to, dive into this history of what the Masons are. They have a really cool little like ice cream parlor downstairs and all of this history. Well, have you ever been back into
that museum down there too?
Yeah,
because I worked at the front desk all in high school too.
It's their event, the Masons like event center, and they have all of this old, stuff hundreds of years old. That's from
so much history.
Yeah, the Mason history. It was really cool, and we have family that are Masons from the past, so it was something I really got into and really enjoyed. But it was just a weird experience from a small town. That's one of the few things I could do because I wasn't a bag boy at IGA. That was like every one of my friends went through their IGA phase.
Yeah, I remember that was the jackpot job.
Oh,
get a job at IGA.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
because they're closed on holidays and they're only open till 8. Yeah, that was the jackpot job.
And they have zero expectations because 90% of their employees are kids. They're like, no, just show up and put the stuff in the bag, and then when they tell you the number that's on the cart when they come get your groceries.
Oh God, I forgot about cart numbers.
I said that because like 2 weeks ago I watched somebody do that and I was like, where am I?
Right?
So I haven't seen this since I was like 10.
Explain that to someone who has no idea what we're talking about.
Oh, you go to IGA, which is our one grocery store in our hometown, and each cart had a number on the front of it. You go purchase all of your groceries, and when you get to the checkout, essentially, you pay them, and they put all the groceries in the cart, and you go out to your car and drive up. And all you have to do is tell them what the cart number is.
Cart 43.
And cart 43, put it in my trunk, pop your trunk, they throw it in there for you.
Oh, I forgot that even existed.
Like, everybody's so excited about all these places like Walmart and Kroger doing like, grocery pickup and curbside stuff. And it's like, IGA was the one that established this.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been done before.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and I remember their carts used to fit into
perfectly. Yes.
Yep.
They slid onto the counter.
They built their entire store for those carts to work.
Wow. Blast from the past.
It is hometown feelings. Okay, so taking what you have growing up in a small town, how do you think that helped you transitioning into these bigger cities?
Ooh. I don't know if it was a huge help.
Yeah.
Really when it comes down to it, lack of exposure was a huge thing. I felt out of place because I didn't know how to interact with everybody. My roommate my freshman year made it super easy because he was, just quite literally a brown version of me. Was wearing jerseys, shorts all the time, stayed up late. We played video games. We both liked poker. We would go out drinking. Champagne was great for the 19-year-olds.
Oh yeah.
So it was, he was one of the first people that just kind of opened my eyes that because we looked different did not mean we were different.
Yeah.
And that is something that you didn't get to experience a lot as a young person. You just didn't have an experience that met that because you didn't have the experience at all.
Yeah.
So most of my situations were as a very young person interacting with anybody that wasn't white was mostly sports. That was where I was mostly exposed to it, show choir being the other one because I did show choir through 8 years of school, really, if you count.
Junior high school,
Well, that and...
in 6th grade.
Choir. Fourth and fifth grade.
Glee Club.
Yeah,
Glee Club and Boris.
Yes.
Yeah.
I almost couldn't remember it.
Yeah, basically from the time we were like 9 years old, 8 or 9 years old on up.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what Sullivan did great is that, hey, you were more introduced to the arts than some other places. So that was kind of the perk of our small community. But then, really when it comes to like preparing you for the rest of the world and what you're expecting to see, the good thing there is that you have very long-standing relationships from a small town. So you have learned how to, interact with somebody and their family because you don't,
It's package deal.
Yes.
Exactly. So everybody knows everybody, and you are very good at working inside of those type of communities. So it's a good thing and a bad thing. We had a father who had a history in our town, and I share his name. We have the same first and last name. So there were moments when I would be hanging out with friends, and I was with a Crawford or
Flory,
a last name that has more influence, and we were probably on school grounds and shouldn't have been, but I was with that other last name. So
you knew it was okay.
Well, not that I knew it was okay, but when the cops showed up,
it was gonna be okay.
Crawford's here, all right, get out of here.
Yeah.
Versus, oh, you're Hensley's kid?
I know your dad. You're doing some shit he would do. Let's teach you a lesson. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was hard to hide from who you were.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, that gave you the ability to actually build your brand in a way.
Yeah.
Everyone knew who I was by the time that I was out of high school because I was prominent in sports and really I did Scholastic Bowl and student council. I did everything I could just to be as active as I could.
You were a smart kid and you were an athletically talented kid and you worked hard. You got good grades.
Yep.
And you were like the anti-Jeff. You were like the opposite of what he did.
Well, and that comes with the whole point of this podcast and the left at the door portion of like what I would say that I left at the door or am still trying to is expectations, because coming from a small town, being a successful student and student athlete and things like that, you walk out of that, and I don't think there was a ton of individuals that put expectations on me, but societally, family-wise, my dad especially, grandparents as well, had high expectations of what was to come, what I needed to be doing. I was the only son of an only son, so, I currently don't have children. So
Roger.
But you can't procreate and carry on the name. So it's a weird.
Talk more about that. Talk about that specific expectation, because
Carrying
that
on the name.
carries on heavy weight, I'm sure.
Yeah, and that is a weird one because of the fact that it was put onto me mostly by how I viewed society. It was my interpretation, but also how it is presented to you in media and basic interactions, and then quite honestly your older generations. My dad put it on me because he is who he is, not because of the things that he did. But my grandparents, on the other hand, used their words to say, this is what you need to be doing, and to set expectations of me that were tied to some financial aspects to help me get through school, which I needed. So I had to, take certain steps and do certain things to show them that I was on that path, so I could, make it through school and afford it.
Right. It's sometimes you have to play the game.
And
I don't think that is just small town life either. I feel like the more that we have expanded and the people that and the more you travel and friends groups grow and whatnot, you realize how generationally that gets passed down, that these expectations of this is what you need to do. And to some degree, playing the game gets you through certain things, you know? And it helps you to grow, to also kind of maybe show respect and see their perspective in some ways. But at some point, I always say you can't unknow something. So when you hit that point when you're like, this is not what I want to be doing. And this is not.
You said the right word, want. Yeah. I was not doing what I wanted to do. I was doing what other people wanted me to do.
Or what you needed to do to get through school.
Part of that, yeah. And I would say that I didn't need to do most of those things. I mean, I have a degree in accounting from a very good business school that I'll never use. Because I'm not even interested in the field, but it was because it was what was told to me what I would be good at. So I should go do that.
Do you think that me not finishing school had an effect?
Fuck.
I know, I kind of fucked you, didn't I?
So you personally had nothing to do with that, but we had family, mainly grandparents, that were
that helped fund our college.
100%, and I can't take back the fact that that's a huge part of the reason I still got through it. But
I have to say they helped fund, because we both worked the whole time we were in school.
Yeah. They made sure I didn't miss rent. They made sure those 5 to 10 times through the 5+ years I was in school that I had to have funds, I could go to them and I could get it. And then when I graduated, I got a little more because they had saved for us for that point to get to graduation, and here you go. So to start us off right, but I had burned through most of that by the time I graduated, so it wasn't as nice.
How did you feel like did you ever feel like you're carrying all the weight? Because you have your siblings, you have the 2 girls, right?
Yeah.
So did you feel you had to take their weight with you as well? You know, like you're carrying all their weight? Because you talk about expectations. So everybody's looking at you and not focusing on them. So now you're taking, how do you feel?
I felt like people thought that, like understood that, like the way you're asking me that question is like, I think you may have even felt that way.
Yeah.
Where,
like, well, I fucked up my chance at the U of I. You need to get it right. And I don't think I ever
Partially-
said that to you,
no,
but
and you didn't
Sometimes
pressure me that
expectations
way.
are not set, though.
Right.
yeah,
Correct.
yes.
not- yeah.
Exactly.
They're felt.
But they're felt, exactly. So I do think there was some pressures there that I would have appreciated not having. You
Yeah.
know? I think the people that I'm close with now weren't those people.
Yeah.
So there's a tell-all there of, hey, you know, once I figured out what I needed in my life and what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it, it just makes you happier. And then you start to uncover, oh, these are the ways that you find happiness even, versus seeking that happiness from other people's happiness about you. You know, I liked having success and being successful to a degree. But what was I giving up for that?
Yeah.
So it was a very hard balancing act to not only try to uncover what I wanted, but then to keep going through what were the motions I put myself through for so long.
So how do you unlearn that, Dylan? How did, or what was the point in your life that you were like, time out, this is not what I want to be doing? And did you have a breaking point, or was it an aha moment? Talk to us about that.
I was gifted it. Not by choice. So I stayed in Champaign after school, worked at a bank for almost a decade. It was like 8.5 years, and had worked my way up. I was a teller in school, banker, business banker, relationship manager, and was like advancing and, you know, doing well.
What was your title when you left? Were you vice
president, relationship manager. I managed all of the business accounts for Chase Bank in Central Illinois between Champaign and Springfield. We had one other person in Central Illinois doing what I did. So I'd been and I was like 25, 26. I was a young person. I'd just been at the company for so long that I had a path I wanted to work through and did it. Well, they fired me, and kind of not necessarily unexpectedly. They'd been going through this big transition with their business setup, so it was a little hostile in the environment in the first place. So when that situation happened and they let me go, was when I moved to Nebraska. It wasn't immediately, but was within that year.
Yeah.
Essentially, I didn't have a job, but was financially stable because I'd been financially stable. No family, no kids, but making good money. So I'm just kind of sitting there not knowing what to do. And then my little sister calls and says, hey, you know, you're not doing anything. You could come out here and live with us and try to find a job in Omaha. And it was a scenario in my life where I was looking for kind of a reset, and not necessarily as big as what was to move to another state, but trying to figure out, did I want to stay in like the financial industry? Did I really like that? Or did I want to work at a bank even, because it's an environment you kind of need to be ready for and be invested in. So for me, yeah, exactly.
It's got dad jokes.
Yeah. So for me, it was, you know, figuring out that I didn't want to be in that kind of face-to-face environment when I was dealing with other people's finances. It's stressful when you're dealing with your own. So dealing with other people's stresses I was good at it and I handled people well, but wasn't the way to go. So kind of making that transition, and, you know, I didn't work for about 12 months by choice. You know, I got moved out to Nebraska, took my time finding a place to start working, and just quite honestly, a lot of internal looking at who I was and what I wanted. You know, my little sister helped because she didn't pressure me. There was no expectations of me getting out there. There was, you know, really the only thing she needed was for me to be there for her. Her husband had just been deployed, and she was in a state with no family by herself, and I wanted to help her. Mm-hmm. So it was one of the first times where I just kind of did something for somebody else and took a big risk and wanted to see what happened. And that was kind of that trigger point of college was me trying to understand what I wanted and not really figuring it out, going through the motions. And then after I got out of school, I just kept living in it. And then that job cut, moving to Nebraska was the trigger point for me to really do the work. I guess you would say.
The little sister he's talking about is Maggie, the one you guys have met.
Yes.
She's been on the show. You've mentioned a couple of times being good at something and kind of like, I was good at it, or I was expected to do this because I was good at it, or what they thought I'd be good at. What advice would you give to someone who has a natural talent that is not something they're passionate about?
Don't do it for other people. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. You may be good at it, but that doesn't mean that's what you even need to do. You don't even need to do it anymore.
Well, you feed off those accolades too, which is so
That
difficult.
is the problem.
Because you're getting the praise and you're getting told, you're so good at this, you're good at this.
And it's relatively effortless.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it also depends on your personality type. Like, I know, just me selfishly, I'm like, well, this is how my personality is. Like, I love languages.
Yeah.
I'm a words of affirmation person. So when someone's like, oh my gosh, you're good at this.
Makes sense.
So what about your, I mean, does that...
Yeah, what's your love language? Do you know?
Physical touch.
You're so Jimmy.
Yeah, well, it's so
Like quality
my
time.
well, my quote that I gave you guys was words are wind.
Yeah.
You can say things and those words mean things, but until I see them in action, they don't affect me.
Yeah.
So words of affirmation were like the bottom of my personality.
Really?
Yes. I personally don't like being shown upon me. I don't like surprises. I don't like that's not what I look for when like that not attention, but it is kind of attention that the light being shown upon me versus
You'd rather
I like to
have-
do good. I have the one person that needs to know that I got it done. Let it be my girlfriend or my mom or my sister or whoever it is. They got it, cool. I don't need everybody else to know.
You don't need a Facebook post.
Nope.
No, please, God, don't.
Please, God,
Yeah.
don't do
No.
The promotion for this episode is going to be very interesting.
Like, here's Dylan. Just watch
Dylan
it or
hates
don't.
Facebook. You should listen to this episode.
Yeah.
I am me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that goes along with who I've built myself out to be because college, younger person, much more active on social media. I was trying to do what everybody else was doing. I thought that's how you lived life. I thought that's how you interacted with people now, which is weird because I see some weird messages I left on social media and Facebook.
Right?
Those
You're like,
memories.
who was I?
It's like some of them are awkward if you read them by themselves because what you used to do was communicate with your friends via your page. You didn't have chat. You would just throw a message up there being like, what's going on this Saturday? So those communications were awkward because then the response is, we're getting drunk versus, oh, we had a party and here's our picture, which is what it is now. So
Right.
you're living in what you had accomplished versus or what happened to you just now versus trying to figure stuff out and just talk to your friends.
Yeah.
So, I am not very active. I will scroll. I'm a scroller.
Yeah.
I will scroll by and go, cool, everyone's alive still. Fantastic. This is,
Yeah.
Well, whose birthday is today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's having a birthday? Who had a baby?
Yep, Facebook
Yes.
is about 90% birthday calendar for me.
Yeah.
And even then, I'm not very good with
I
it.
think that's probably typical, a good tool for people in their mid-30s to use for a birthday calendar.
Well, and then for me, too, it's one of those things where it's like I'm having the internal discussion with myself of, do I just get rid of it? Because what do I use it for?
Yeah.
So I mean, quite literally at this point, social media is for other people to interact with me, not for me to interact with
Exactly.
other people.
Yeah.
So hey, keep up with me. Luckily,
you
my
don't-
girlfriend posts stuff.
Yeah,
That's
she
always.
does.
I have it so
That's
she
good
can
enough.
tag me as most of what it's there
Tag
for
you.
now.
Yeah.
She made a really cute post about your birthday with all these really good pictures. We're going to
She
share
did.
it.
She did.
It was so good.
It was cute.
May your day be filled with giggles. The place to come for cards and gifts. Personalized just for you. Come and try our tasty treats. They will leave you giggling too. Oh, the brightest spot on Merchant Street will leave you happy and complete. May your day be filled with giggles.
You mentioned earlier you don't have kids,
Correct.
but you got Roger. So tell us about how Roger came into your life. And what is Roger?
He's a dog.
He's not a
Roger,
turtle.
What?
Roger does have a very human name, so
Yes.
people are confused when we talk about him sometimes, just as if Roger's our friend. So I work for a company, PayPal, that wants you working from home. Like during COVID and all, once this started, essentially early March of 2020, we were already working in the process of get out of the office, start working from home, be safe. They have the technology to do it. And my girlfriend and I at the time had already moved to a new apartment within a month before all of this started happening. It was a really hectic time frame. And we're already looking to get a dog. Like, we really wanted one. We kind of picked an apartment that it was okay to have a dog in, things like that. So once I got the heads up that I was going to be working from home full time, I needed a dog.
Time to adopt.
Yes,
that really
yes.
is true. Yeah.
So it was more, we had been planning for it for a while. It built up to us going, all right, there's that trigger that was, we got to do it.
It's a sign.
Yep. So we went, in Omaha, we went out to rescue. They rescue dogs from kill shelters. So Roger came from like Oklahoma on a Indian reserve, but we went out there, saw a couple dogs. Day one, Roger was one of them, and he played around with us. He's not a very toy-oriented dog. He's more people. He wants to play with you. He wants you to chase him and play with him. He's very interesting. So he just sat right down on my girlfriend Bailey's feet and just kind of looked at me, and like I was like, oh gosh, we're gonna go home with this dog, aren't we? He is gonna become ours. And I looked up at Bailey and she was crying. She goes, we're taking him, right? And I was like, yes. I believe he's won us over.
chose you.
That is exactly what she says all the time.
And
He
what
picked
kind
us.
of dog is he?
So he kind of a mutt because he's a
Okay.
stray. So we did the DNA test on him. So that was my Christmas present that first year from Bailey to me was, hey, let's know what he is.
Yeah.
So he's split down the middle. Half of him is golden retriever and lab retriever. And then the other half is bulldog and American bulldog.
Okay.
So he's a little black, looks like a little black pit bull, kind of. Not
Yeah.
quite as stocky as they are, but big old head.
He's got fat pit bull head.
Yeah, he's got a big doofus, got a little snaggle tooth down here on the bottom, and his tongue hangs out to the right. He can't drink water, like he drinks sideways. So you can tell there's some bulldog in him because he's a little broken. He's a little weird. But he also, like, if you just look up an all black American bulldog, he looks just like them. So he's built and structured like that. But he has made it. We've moved to a house so we can get him a backyard because we were still in an apartment when we first got him. So he's upgraded. He has turned our spare bedroom queen size bed into his bed, and so he is spoiled. But he's definitely helped me with my sanity of being, fairly introverted in the first place, and then secondarily working from home. It's more of a situation where I need to make sure I go out and reach out to people, and he helps me have that social interaction where I'm not talking to myself all day. I have my fur friend.
Yes.
And he interacts with me, so we have a really good relationship. I'm missing him right now because I'm out of state traveling here, so I get pictures all the time from my girlfriend being like, he misses you. And I was like, well, duh. He's been my shadow for a year and a half, because I'm home all the time. He doesn't know what it's like not to be with me more than, maybe a day. Mm-hmm. So it's been weird. Personally for me, because he's not around all the time. He's always following me.
Cassie has a pandemic baby dog too.
And it's with a human name, Dennis.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
Dennis and Roger sound like two guys that would sit on the porch and drink their sweet tea together.
What type of dog is Dennis?
So Dennis is a Bernese Mountain Dog and a mini poodle mixed together.
He's a
He's a
little
Muppet.
So how big is he?
He's tiny. His dad was tiny, but the mom is the Bernese. So he's just this little fluffy Muppet dog. But it's weird because
He probably weighs 15 pounds, right?
he weighs 9.
9 pounds? So he's like Heidi's size.
He just went to the
My
vet.
dog's head weighs that much.
I know, we joke. It is this running joke because I was telling the vet, his, where we got him from, we're good family friends with that family over in Arthur. And she'll post pictures and stuff of here's litter mates, so we get to see his cousins and his brothers or his sisters and stuff. And I'm not joking you. He has a brother that's 25 pounds. And here's Dennis, who's pushing 10. That's it's probably good that
He's
you got him.
petite.
He is. He's a little runt, but
He is.
I think I always just wonder. I have obviously the benefit of like, you know, majority of the time working from home.
Yep.
But I'm like, what is going to happen? Because so many people have pandemic dogs
Yeah.
or cats, pandemic pets. And they have now every single day, all day long, that is like the schedule that you have created with them.
Yep.
Like there's going to be some separation anxiety when we get back to shifting into not working from home.
If we
For
go
both of
back-
us.
For
Yes.
For both sides of it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, your pet's got to get used to you not being around as much, and then you're at work with humans, and you know what? Pets are easier.
Yep, they don't
Yeah.
say words. So I have a pandemic pet too. We got Choppy. Alexander Choppington. We got a turtle.
No, say the name again. We were
Alexander Choppington.
Alexander
is her
Choppington.
name. When Choppy came into our lives, we decided Choppy was a boy, and then Charlie decided, since she doesn't have a sister and she wants one, we did gender reassignment, and Choppy became a girl.
Yeah.
And her name is Choppy Charlotte June, according to. But we are big fans of the musical Hamilton, so we always sing about Alexander Choppington. But Charlie, it's Choppy Charlotte June is her whole name.
Well, yeah.
But we've had her since May, and she's about the size of an Oreo now. She's
You
bitty.
posted pictures where she has grown a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, I don't think she's getting bigger. Then I pulled up the picture of the day that we brought her home, and she's like the size of a quarter. She's like a little tiny thing. Do you have a
Yeah, we do.
pandemic pet?
We have Bingo became our pandemic pet, but before Bingo, we had our gray cat named Astra, and she was just like, I got her in December, and then the pandemic hit in February, so she kind of became one of those.
Yeah.
And then we decided to get Bingo. He's an orange kitty because we'd lost our orange fur ball like a couple years prior to pandemic, and we're like, let's get a orange cat. You know, why not? You know, it's for Talia. I don't.
Sure.
The name was not my choosing. I always name my cats after cats.
Okay.
So my cats are like Cougar and Puma and stuff like that,
yeah.
and they're always like unique name.
Bingo is a
And,
dog name?
and it's Bingo.
Who did Talia name it?
Yes,
Of course, Talia.
I was
named it.
outvoted.
Okay, and Bingo's the one that like sticks to your husband, Stephen?
No, Astra was
Astra
the
does,
one,
okay.
and she's the girl.
Yeah.
Which we lost our. We had a gray cat prior, and it was a Stevens cat, and we lost her. So I feel like.
You lose a lot of
Astra.
cats.
I know,
I was gonna
sorry.
say not
You
lost,
gotta get a
passed
different-
away.
Passed
No, you
away.
like-
Because people, it sounds
Yeah.
like you just like randomly
They just
lose them.
ran away and you were like,
No,
but I mean, a cat
it's
would.
just a cat.
But
We'll
I'm
get
the type
another
of
one.
person. If I see a stray cat, I will go after it.
Most
So we
of those
don't-
cats have homes,
I
Andrea.
know,
You
I'm
can't just be
sorry.
kidnapping
I
people.
do think about that
sorry.
with Boo Kitty, my Siamese, that he
Boo
roams
Boo-
the neighborhood.
But
Yeah.
I feel like the other day he almost came home with me
Yeah.
because my door was open and he was running, and I'm like,
But he also
"Hey."
knows that it's you.
But
and
he
he's like,
knows
if that's
me.
going to get him one step closer to your mom, who he's in love
Yes,
with, that's what he'll do.
And
yeah.
That's cute.
It is funny how they make those connections.
Yeah, but I feel like our animals bring so much joy to us, and with the pandemic, and with you, and a lot of people don't like kids. When it comes to kids, some of us have kids, some of us don't have kids. We sometimes may not understand because we have kids, but I've went through that period where I didn't have a Talia for half of my life, so my
Did you lose her too?
I didn't lose.
And Sarah has some pandemic pets too.
So she
Yes,
has
Sarah's
pets,
three.
Yes.
and those
Yeah.
are her babies,
Yeah.
and it's okay. And we treat them just like family, just like we will talk to them, just like they're part of our human, and it's okay.
It was.
Okay, so you know what I want to also bring up is I'm sure that Roger helps with this, but you talked about you being an introvert. Your sister is the polar opposite.
This one.
That you,
The other sister
Maggie
is also an
Yes.
introvert.
I'm middle ground between them.
Yeah, you kind of just as each child went on,
it got
more-
watered down. The
more-
extrovertness.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I would say I was definitely much more extroverted
Dylan was like
as
life.
a youth.
Yeah, he was
right.
like life of the party person, even when we were in college.
Correct.
You always knew when Dylan got there. He was very loud. You're also bigger than most people, so
I stand out.
You stand out. You're big. Your hair's big.
Well,
you
and
have a
most of
big
the places
voice.
we knew everybody.
We knew
I mean, that's-
everybody.
Yeah.
Dylan's
So
here.
when I came in, I was coming from out of town, and it was an event when I showed up, and then vice
kind of
versa
a-
when
kind of a big
our friends
deal.
from
He is a big
when our friends
Yeah.
from Charleston would come to the U of I, it was all right. They're getting here, and then it would be 20 minutes of hurrah just because they're here. So
Well,
I go through
I
that.
want you to speak to. Okay, I'm assuming that when you were working in the banking, and it's because you were dealing with customer relations nonstop, you had to be on. So talk about the transition from being on for a decade to now, like you said, working in your basement with Roger.
Stress levels are much lower. I mean,
Yeah.
that is baseline. Like one of the benefits mentally, personally for me, is transitioning from living that lifestyle of being on and having, draining my brain as much as I can during the day. That I have more time now because I don't do that I can spend that energy on me and do the things that I want to do and enjoy, and that's part of that transition I went through. But I definitely think that's a big reason I didn't go back into banking was the face-to-face aspect of it. I deal with people all of the time still. I just do it electronically and over the phone. I'm not, I mean, now that I work from home that way, but even when I was still in the office at this job, I'm mostly electronically interacting with people that aren't in my area. I'm, doing sales or supporting.
Because PayPal's everywhere.
Exactly. So it kind of didn't matter that I wasn't standing next to them. So that worked for me because I could be on a 20-minute phone call and then hang up and be at my desk by myself still. So I think for me, that transition phase of trying to understand who I was, what I wanted, and how to get what I wanted versus what I thought everybody else wanted me to do, that was that kind of trigger for me to look at life that way. And then, I don't know, make that transition for how I built my life even.
Right.
Do you miss it? Do you miss
Being extroverted?
Yeah, do you miss being on? Do you miss that attention at all?
Not necessarily, because if I need to, I can turn it on.
Yeah.
It's an ability you don't necessarily lose. You get rusty at it.
Like riding a bike, right? Or rollerblades.
Definitely on rollerblades. I was never good at rollerblades. You know that. I'm athletic, but you put wheels or slick things under me, I become you. I become you and my mom and everyone else in my
Yes.
life that is clumsy. I can't do it.
I just can't see that.
I know, it's wild
As
because I'm good at
athletic-
rollerblades.
She is.
Okay,
She would-
I can't see
she
that
was-
either.
She
I'm
was,
looking
I know.
Right,
Guys,
but
trust
I
me.
also, because of how athletic you are, I can't see you being clumsy.
Oh, put
Imagine
skates
me
on
going,
me.
why can't you just go rollerblading with me?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm
That was
not
it.
good at it. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're not trying. Come on. And me not understanding, you're good at everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why can't you just come to the roller skating rink with me?
Maybe.
Nope.
Because
Maybe
I
he-
suck at
He
it.
really
Yeah.
was, but it is the one thing you excelled in.
And he was
So
like,
he was
No,
Yeah,
we
I'm
tried
gonna
as
give
kids
this to
even.
her.
Like we had rollerblades and skates. We
So
tried
kind.
to make it a thing. We even tried to get Maggie involved with
Yep.
it when we were little.
No.
But it was no. I
Jesse,
had to have
I
skates.
don't enjoy this because
when we got rollerblades, I just quit.
Yeah.
You know? This is harder. Skates, you got 4 of them. You can just
yeah.
stand there in place and be fine. But no, rollerblades, you're just kind of
It's like breaking
wait,
your
I'm leaning.
ankle.
That too. I also had like a really crazy growth spurt in middle school, and that was when we were getting back into it. And your bodies are very weird at that time frame, so I had trouble, just the basics of not hurting all of the time.
Yeah.
It was very painful. But then on top of it, it was my center mass was weird. Like you change and you grow and you
Yeah.
where those balls are on your feet matter. All of a sudden you don't, you can't just stand
What is
there
this
and
body I'm
keep
in?
rolling around. Yeah, it was aggressive.
he's like, can we just go inside and you paint my toenails again?
No, sure, I would have much preferred that. Choreograph some sort of Ace and Bass song. It's more my speed.
I know. I love watching Charlie and Jimmy and seeing like, oh man. But Jimmy already is like, paint my nails, braid my hair, let's put on a dress. Charlie's gonna get to the point where she's like, God, I'm so tired of playing dress up with you.
Yes. Yeah, that could definitely happen.
He'll probably get tired of it too at a certain age.
Maybe.
I think so too.
The dress up part of it.
You think-
I think once he goes, because he's going into public school, he will.
I
He'll
will
stop.
send that kid to school in dresses. And anyone who gives him shit about it, Dustin will deal with.
Yeah, but I think that it'll be he will not want to deal with the children.
Yeah.
But my perspective of that is that's fine if he goes in a dress.
Yes.
He's not playing dress up anymore.
Yeah.
That's what I meant by that. He's going out. And,
That's his choice. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he'll get to a point where it's not dress up anymore. It's just what he
This
chooses
is what
to
I
wear.
wear.
And it may be a dress, and it may
Yes.
be a skirt, and it may be
Yeah.
camo, it may be whatever.
Yeah.
But it's gonna then be a
These are my
choice, and it's not gonna
my
be
clothes.
dress up. This
Yep.
is you're wearing your persona that people
I do. It
like
always
to do.
breaks my heart because Jack was able to go to the private Montessori up until 3rd grade, so he had it longer. And I can just remember he just didn't have a care. Like things that were established in us by going to a public school that we cared about and like we noticed and
Like his Christmas list this year is anything Adidas.
and I'm like, man, it never was like that.
Yeah.
You know, and so I always just think to myself, I appreciate the age of like carefree la la land, just happiness.
Yeah.
And because at some point it changes, and at some point he does care what other people say. Not to a bad point. It's not like he's like, oh, they're mean to me, they're bullying me, so I have to wear Adidas.
No.
It's just that he has gotten into a groove of like, this is now who I am.
This is what I like.
Yeah.
And they like it.
Yeah.
And that's why I know what it is.
I think it's nice to know that it transitions though, because I look at also like, I don't know, and maybe it's different for girls versus guys. Like Dylan, you're so similar to like my brother Grant. Like, and you guys have your friends groups are similar where you're all
we had a lot of overlap when we were in school.
You guys had where it's like you guys grew up more like brothers than just like, oh, we're just like friends and stuff. But and I hope that for like I don't know, for Jack's sake and things like that, to have that type of camaraderie, because it seems like you guys, here you are into your 30s and you're still that close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a couple of friends that, one here in Decatur, another one in Arthur, and they're still who I would consider to be my best friends. Part of that is because we grew up, I've known them since I don't have memories. Like I've never not had them in my life.
Yeah.
That is, I would hands down say the biggest perk of going to a small town is some of the relationships you build while you're there are endless, because sometimes that's all you got.
Yeah.
Especially when you're a kid growing up in a small town, you are trying to find and get those people involved in your life and figure out who it is that you have fun with, even, let alone that you want to, deal with. That, hey, you go through phases with them, but some of them you don't have a choice to kick out, some of them you do, and then some of them just are always there, and they will be. And that's part of that is like communicating with them, because I don't live in the same state, but that's a conversation you have with them of, hey, this is what you are in my life, this is how important you are to me, how do we keep this going? And it helps to be, I don't know, the expectations of the communications that guys have of, hey, you don't need to be on top of each other and talking all the time. That every couple of months I reach out, how you doing, how's the kid? He's got a young 2-year-old now. Oh my gosh. Ugh.
Time flies.
I know.
Seriously.
I know. But one of those things where it's like, yeah, he'll never not be my friend. There are groups of people that are that way. Versus sometimes it's you're going through the transition. Like there's people that I was best friends with in school. Like you guys mentioned Ian earlier.
Yeah.
I've been talking to him in almost a decade. So it's been a long time.
Yeah.
So he and I just have gone so different paths, and we didn't have that relationship when it ended that we were really close. So it just kind of fizzled out. So
And you, and specifically when you mention Ian, he's a man of faith that is very much a part of his life, and you're a self-identified atheist.
yeah.
So
yeah.
talk a little bit about how we used to go to church camp when we were kids. So when
Did I choose to go to church camp?
I don't know, probably not.
It was the
free. It was a
expectation.
free babysitter.
It was expected. For
I'll
you
tell
to
you
go
why
to
I went to church as a kid.
Tell me.
Girls. 100%.
I bet a lot of people relate to that.
I was bored there. I didn't understand what all of these people were into. Like, I didn't get it. I understood what they wanted me to. Like, I could take in the information and memorize all the stuff.
Because you're a good student and you're smart.
Yeah.
My brain works, correct.
Yes.
So, and being from a small town, I didn't even know what an atheist was as a kid.
No, me neither.
No, we really didn't.
No, and I was under the impression, even up until adulthood, that atheism was like Satan worship.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there was
that's
definitely
so-
that stigma.
But that's the kind when you're living in a small town and very conservative.
And everyone
people,
who's not Christian is evil.
Christian is evil,
Seriously.
and they would judge you. And it's because I kind of felt that. I grew up a little bit in Monticello, so it's like, gosh, you're going to hell because you said this, or you're doing this,
Or you
and-
believe this, or
you
you weren't
believe
there on
this,
Sunday.
or you want this. Or it becomes a broader, like you can believe in science. Are you believe in science? Do you?
Yes.
Yeah,
If there's reason or logic behind it, I'm on that team.
Yeah.
So my husband is like that. He believes in science. He's a science guy. He went to church too, and he's got his thing. But I don't believe you're a true atheist. That's the thing. I mean,
Well, tell me
you
what
have to
atheism-
believe- yeah.
Yeah, what does it mean?
What does that mean to you? Like when you say I'm
I
an
don't
atheist.
believe in religion. I don't believe there's a God. If anything, I believe in chaos.
Okay.
We are here pure mathematical luck. The fact that I was the sperm that was given to the egg in my
Right.
mom is a miracle to me, and that's just math, though. That is not divinity.
Okay.
said
Oh,
the word
there's not
Tell
divinity
me, but you
in
said
that.
the word miracle. So what is a
Yeah.
miracle then to you?
To me, miracle is probably the wrong word, but it's the form of winning the lottery. It's
Okay.
a
Mathematical
anomaly that just happened.
Yeah.
But for me, I never feel like just because of that you're an atheist. There is something you believe in.
Well, no,
It doesn't have to be.
atheism isn't a dirty
Morality.
word.
Is
Yeah.
it?
It's not a dirty word.
It's not, yeah. And I mean, some people, again, very conservative people will be like, okay, they're going to take that terminology to a whole new level, But we all believe in something. It could be, it's science, whatever
Yeah,
it is. It's
science.
something.
Right.
I
But
like
I
that you said
don't-
chaos.
But chaos
That's
is
what
a
it
great,
is.
yeah.
Because really, when you think about this, again, I'm a math person. That's
Right.
one of the science and stuff is my
Right.
thing. So when you think about, the fact that the Earth exists and how that was built and the time it took to build that, that's what I believe in. That's, so for me, like when I think about like our lives and our life expectation and our role in the world, mine is really just going to be more of a moral standpoint. What we should be doing for others because it's what you should do as a person.
Not
what you're
because there's a
capable of.
punishment or a reward at the end.
Yeah, like I mean, exactly. Like that's one of the things I say that I'm very jealous of people that have religion because there's an end point for you where you're working towards that and you're building towards that. Where I every day have to get up and choose to be moral. I actually put in the effort to do those things, not because there's a goal at the end, but because I know that it's the right thing to do.
So something I always ask atheists is, do you believe in ghosts?
No.
Really?
Oh,
Oh man.
really?
But neither do
But I'm a person that's also I've never had a ghost
experience.
experience.
Okay,
So
yeah,
when
you've
someone
never had an
happens,
encounter.
I
or
just think
something.
those are all
So would
fun
you?
stuff.
So
Okay.
when it comes to ghosts, would you say you're agnostic? Like if an apparition appeared, you'd be like, "Holy shit, there's a ghost." You
No,
wouldn't be
because at
like,
first I'd be like, all right,
"That's a
where's,
fucking
where's the
trick."
hologram? Yeah.
Right.
That
You
would
would
be
try
my
to science
instinct.
it out.
Yeah, I would
Yes.
try to figure it out.
So Brandy, our friend Brandy, is an atheist also, and says that she doesn't believe in spirits or an afterlife or anything like that, but lived in a fucking haunted house and had experiences. And she's telling me these things, and I'm like, how do you, okay, great. I don't need you to be a Christian.
I could
You just
genuinely-
wanted you to believe in ghosts.
But that's
Yes!
the ability to understand that there are things you can't understand.
And
It's the
I
whole,
find-
it's
yeah.
the whole science today is magic in the past.
You're
Really-
right.
Really, when it
Yes.
comes
Yes.
down to it, the things that we don't understand seem to be magic.
Yes.
But then when you figure them out, oh, it's just science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's your perception of what that is. Hey, sure, ghosts may be real, fine.
Do you believe
But I
like-
also am sitting here wearing a Yeti, like
Yeah.
a Sasquatch, because this is funny to me.
Right.
I love that people go look for him, and I enjoy that thing of it. I don't think he's real. If he turned out to be, I'd be so ecstatic. I'd go to
Yeah.
Oregon or wherever they found him and be like, yeah, let's go.
Let's
do
go
it.
find this motherfucker.
I've been living a joke my whole life, and now it's real. I gotta go. Gotta be there. But
Is that what are you going to have that same spirit of enthusiasm when Jesus walks into the room?
I won't burst into flames. that'll be what happens now. I guess he's forgiving.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but no, we've had you're correct in asking me that when it comes to like, hey, we went to church as a kid and things like that. But the intent for me to be there was to hang out with Wyatt, to
socialize,
to have it be an external event that's not our house or our family.
Yes.
We didn't go with our family most of the time.
We got sent. I think it was a babysitting service. A lot of times they were like, go to church. Now we have some time off.
The highway. Did you ever go to the highway one where they picked us up in a bus? Yeah.
Every once in a while, I smell.
It was a van.
Every once in a while, I will
van.
smell something that I'm like, this smells like the church van.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
the
weird.
air freshener.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the church I went to with Chris, not Chris,
Miller.
Other Miller. What's his name?
Yep, John.
Went to with him. I have that.
Sullivan people.
Oh yeah. So, anyways, he and his dad, I think, runs the church now or ran it for a while, and they moved and stuff. So, like, very invested in it. But they never cared that it wasn't my thing, especially when we got older. Because I would go do a bunch of stuff with him because he was social and asked me to.
He was so sweet.
He was a
nice kid.
Yeah.
He would knock on the door, and they were teenagers.
He's from Canada.
He's Canadian, so of course he's polite. But he would knock on the door. I mean, they were teenagers, and he would say, "Can Dylan come out and play?" This is how I see Eli and Jack being forever.
100%. It really will be.
I don't think because we don't have stupid listeners or viewers, I think it is okay to say, I envy stupid people. I mean, there's all kinds of memes.
Stupid's the wrong word.
It's not stupid.
It's
Ignorance is bliss. Where it's like, I'm just kind of, where you live in that frame of mind that either there is a higher being or something is going to take care of it all.
I don't even mean this in relation to religion. But think about how much, you've even said this.
Yeah.
Look how happy she is.
Yeah.
She's so simple and happy.
Very simple-minded about that. Yep.
So you said what's true about this entire thing earlier, where you look at kids that way.
Yep.
They don't know. They're ignorant. They're dumb.
Yeah, they don't have those experiences.
Exactly. They haven't had a chance to go out and do things. So one of the things where we play a couple of games. Have you ever played the card game? Where it's just like it's a 1v1 question thing. So some of them will be really personal about, like what's one thing you would go back in time and do if you had 10 minutes to do it. So it's just, the question was, who would you go back in time to see if you could go back in time
not to do.
Yeah, well, there's hundreds of questions, but this one was, for me personally, it was Granddad. I would go back and just tell him thanks. That's all I need, because I didn't understand what he was doing for me at the time, being my father figure. Even though I think he did know that, but I would love to have appreciated him in his life. So it's one of those where you kind of dive into that question of understanding your feelings better. Where some people don't have that, and yes, that gives them that capability. But usually, I think it's just inexperience.
It is,
rather than like being dumb or ignorant, because everybody learns from the goods and the bads that they have happened to them. It's what makes them who they are.
We were talking recently about, I don't remember who it was, about, and I said, have they ever lost somebody? And it was like, no, they haven't. Well, that's why they're handling this situation the way they are. They've never experienced a profound loss.
Yeah.
They've never had a relationship end tragically.
Right.
But we've been through those traumas, and it gives you insight, and you deal with things differently.
It really is true, because if you think about once somebody has a trauma or a death or a loss, that it's almost like it chips away, and there's this huge hole where that person or had an impact on your life, and now something has to fill that void, or it doesn't.
Yeah.
And you're left with a void, and I think those who are left with that void are the ones that have not dealt with their trauma. And so there is just that ongoing emptiness that they forever take with them.
And the way that as individuals we deal with what we put in that void, or how we navigate that void, changes us forever as a person.
Yeah, it really, really does. You said earlier, Dylan, that you're envious of people that have that kind of faith, that are like, something else is taking care of me, or whatever the case is. How is it not seeped into your thought process of being open to it and being like, well, maybe there is something bigger than me? Like, what makes you envious of them, and how do you not try to incorporate that or seek out that information more?
Yeah, I think it's kind of twofold. One is death is a huge thing. For any atheist, that's the end. Period. donezo. So I think that's a big one. You have something you're working towards if you're religious. In any religion, there's an end point. No matter what religion it is, there's somewhere you're working to go. Versus the other side of that coin is decision making. When somebody who is very religious or is just religious in general is presented with a scenario, let it be losing somebody, let it be, making a big decision, their religion's brought into that decision making. Yeah. How does that affect or impact my life and my religion? And it helps guide them on what they're supposed to do versus,
you feeling like you're on your own.
I got to make it up as I go. Yeah. I have to actually think about what is moral, how it affects other people, and if that makes it right or wrong. Mm-hmm. So it's less about like sacrificing myself and more of just understanding how do I do this. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a really tough balancing act to do, but it means what I look at daily is how to be good versus how to do what I'm supposed to do because somebody else told me to.
Yeah,
because I have a guideline. Expectations, guidelines, growing into, who you are rather than what someone else or some people else think you're supposed to turn into. Mm-hmm. So that's more of why I say, hey, I'm jealous. The death one was where I started that. I've said that for like a decade now where I'm jealous of that point because that worries me. But it's the same for everybody in my point of view. Mm-hmm. So I don't worry about that anymore. That's just the next step. Mm-hmm.
So when we were kids and you watched all dogs go to heaven.
I cried a lot.
You don't think Roger's going to go to heaven?
Unfortunately, no. Mm-hmm. He's going to get cremated and get carried around with me probably the rest of my life. in a little amulet,
we know
I'm sure.
So many crafty people. We can get you like a Roger bracelet or a Roger necklace.
I told Bailey, we're just going to stuff him. We're just going to stuff him.
Have you seen that on Facebook?
Oh my gosh.
Somebody tried to do that to like their
it was a cat, right? Oh my god, okay. They did it and the cat was like falling apart.
Oh god!
It is traumatic.
That is horrible.
And they kept it.
But I don't feel bad. We do have our 2 little ones cremated.
Your little ones being pets, not children.
Pets, not children. I do. They're in our guest bedroom. They're still there. We're not. We're there.
Jesus,
they're in a box.
Andrea, I at least keep them in my own bedroom so they're not haunting my guests.
I would like them to be around.
Buddy haunted our guests.
Buddy,
they would be blessed.
Listen, they would.
If I see my dead cat walking around, I would be like, "Oh, look at that fur ball."
You would sit
Good
with
for you. I would sit. Now,
so
if
you
you're
want
talking
to stuff and have take your animals to a taxidermy? She does.
I mean, why not?
She does. Now that idea's been
crazy.
planted.
Why not? Yeah. I'm okay with that. I just feel like if when I die, they can all come with me.
Should we
do you want to be?
That was you brought that up, and I was going to be like, okay, atheist. Yeah. I would love to just become a tree, like somebody plant me, and then
have you seen that though?
Yeah. Trust me, I went on weird. I have the internet.
And then print you on the Bible. Print the Bible on you.
So what do you want to have happen to you?
So I always wanted to be cremated, and I wanted because I always felt like I was always traveling. I'm not settled. I'm not a settled person. But then when Talia, my little one, came into my life, that changes a lot of things for me. So then I figured, well, maybe I want to be buried and have every ashes of my little fur babies with me, take them with me. So
do you remember when we had Emily Ramey on the show?
Uh-huh.
And she,
yeah.
I that's like one of my favorite episodes when she took her dad's ashes and everywhere she travels, she sprinkles some of them.
Yeah.
And his favorite places, the places that she knows that he loved or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I feel like there's no wrong way to do death. We don't think there is.
I do believe in an afterlife. I do believe something happens when we die. Yeah. But I'm also very much like, I'm gone. You do whatever you need to do with me to make you feel okay with what happened.
I agree, Jess.
If that means cremate me, great. If that means bury me, if that means taxidermy me.
Dry it off and freeze it.
Whatever.
For the future.
If you want to try to have me reanimated.
I always think about my grandma. She demanded to have a closed casket. And family members were, depending on who they were, but some family was just like up in arms, like, oh, we need to have it open. And she always would say, well, that is not what I looked like.
Right.
That is not how I want my grandkids or my great-grandkids to
Everyone
see me.
marveling at your dead body.
My dead body. Like, that seems weird. And it just is so cool when the more you talk to people about stuff like that, like the reasoning behind it, where I'm like, and maybe it's because I have an open mind. So if somebody said, I want to become a tree, like put me in a pod and let me be a tree, I would never be the kind to be like, well, that's not proper. That's not how death should be done.
That's not how the Irish do it.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, this is cool.
Tell me more about this tree thing.
Yes.
That could be in the family for decades.
Yeah, I
Hundreds
really do.
of years you could be in our family.
I'm just thinking about the things I used to say when I was first becoming an atheist and didn't understand, like, oh no, you don't have to like hate religion. You just that's not for you.
You just don't participate.
So mom was like, well, what do you want to do when you die? Because we were going through Grandma B's situation. I was like, I don't know, cremate me, I guess. And she's like, well, we have family buried over here. It's fine. If you bury me over here, there's going to be a statue of Jesus giving me a beer bong while I'm drinking out of it because that's how much this is real to me. And she just, she probably peed her pants laughing. But it was just me being like, that's not for me though. That's not what I want. And so, but my big joke was that, Jesus is giving me a beer bong. I was in college. I was still a young man. Being dumb.
I do believe though that like the way you talk about it, Dylan, is like such an, I don't know, just an enlightening perspective, because most people do think that it comes with this negative stigma of like hating
I transitioned,
religion.
but that was when I was like mad because I didn't know. I was more ignorant and angry about not understanding what it was than I was just accepting people that they want different things than me. So I would challenge people versus like, well, what makes you think that's real? Prove it to me. But it was the science part of it is what I look for. So that didn't work well for me. It didn't last long because it was, again, a transition phase in my life where once I figured out what I wanted, great, I was happy again.
Instead of being combative.
Correct. Well, and I would say I wasn't necessarily combative. I was more questioning, and people took that as combative. People do not like you to truly deep dive question their religion. It's not
They get defensive.
Yes.
Well, and I also think about, like, I was not a cradle Catholic, and so when I converted in college, being around these people that grew up with being Catholic, they were like when you
why
question
would you do
it was one of two things. It would be like, you just don't
ask that question.
Yeah.
We learned when we were 5 that question's not a question.
And some of them said that, and some of them said, I have no idea the answer. We just do it.
Yep.
And where for me, I'm like, well, but I want to know. And when I took religions classes in college, I was like, I want to know about not just becoming Catholic. I want to know about every type of religion, because I mean that is a part of history, like,
and humanity.
Humanity. So I guess if anything else, it's like maybe we're all just like believers of the school of humanity. Like when you talked about just do good, be good,
I don't know if you guys
choices.
remember when I talk about in Guyana, we celebrated every religious holiday. There wasn't one that you belong to. You belong you belong to Hindu, you belong to the Muslim, and you belong to Christianity. So the three major. So every major holiday, religious holiday, it's celebrated regardless of your skin color or who you are. It's
They've turned it into almost their own religion because they just morphed all of them into one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
and
like, if you
and
have
it's
something
all
to celebrate,
respected.
we're here for you.
Yep.
And we are never gonna be upon like, okay, why are you doing this religion? You could be on this religion. I actually feel like when I came to the United States, it changes a lot of things for me. It's more about, oh, you're serving the 5 hand gods, or you're virgin, it's one of those things. It's like, this isn't what religion should be. If you're talking about being non-judgmental and all these things, then why do you have to pray your religion on what other people religions do? And I know there's a lot of people question. I was a Catholic. I was a little Catholic girl, went to Catholic school, catechism, everything. When I came to the States, went over to Church of Christ. I've done that for so many years, and until recent, and it had nothing to do with me marrying Stephen. It had everything to do, I start questioning things. I finally wake up and I realize, like, why are we acting this way? Why can't we? And I miss celebrating all these holidays. And I felt like I can't even do it because I'm being judged.
You know, Dylan said something earlier about why was I going to church? I was going to socialize. I was going to. And when I realized I was not going to be bringing my kids up in a church, that was like, man, what a void that's going to be, is this lack of community. But you make the community.
Yeah.
And we have you.
I had good people in my life that went to church, so I went to church with them.
Right,
That's really
right.
what it was.
I
It
had
wasn't.
that too, yeah.
I didn't seek church out for the.
It just happens.
That was where I went to.
Something, though, that having kids, that I'm like, I don't want them to not have a community. Well, we're lucky. We have Pray Flower, so there's a great community at their school. But also, this is just another example, and we've all had this, where you choose your family. You get to pick the people. Like my kids, my brother and sister aren't having human children, but my kids have lots of cousins because they have Talia, they have Jack, they have Helen and June, and you know, people. Okay, so back to this atheism thing. I think there are so many more atheists walking around than are willing to openly talk about it, because Brandy's atheist, Rye is atheist, Mags is atheist. Like, of the 10 closest
Between
people
agnostic
to
and
me,
atheism, I would say that's probably about half of America, but half of them aren't willing to admit it.
exactly, they're afraid of the judgment that comes with it, because Christians are so notorious for being judgmental and hateful towards things that are not in
And
alignment
when we
with their
say
beliefs.
that, we don't mean
No, disclaimer, this is based on our personal-
based on our experience.
Yeah.
Not all Christians are bad.
No,
just
not
like
at
not
all.
all religions are bad. So let's
No.
just
No, I
put
think
that
all
out there.
religions are good. We're
Yeah.
here today in the community and society
Right.
we're in because religion got us
Because
here.
of religion.
It's just a fact.
Yeah.
The
The good and
Catholic
bad.
Church, every church that's ever existed has advanced society. That is the crazy thing for me about it, is because we can't have gotten where we are without them. But they're not for me. You know?
Exactly.
So
That's why I
it
say
is
that
an
we're like,
awkward
this is
position to be
history.
in.
Like, it's
Right.
not like you're learning about, like, so when
Yeah.
someone's like, well, I don't want to learn about the Muslim religion. Well, why? It's about history.
It
Like,
is.
this is what is going on in other nations that you just don't, you don't know.
And more people-
And what about Jewish people? All of the history, I think there's just so much depth to our world and to humanity.
I think our
Why
gen-
not be curious about that?
Yes, and
It's
our
not about
generation
religion.
our generation is sort of changing that.
Yeah.
Like, I can learn and question things without being accused of doubting other things. Like, I want to learn, and now we have any person on this globe I could talk to, because
Yeah.
everyone has a phone and the internet.
Yes.
So why wouldn't I want to, like, grow my own wealth of personal knowledge and experience to better empathize? Because empathy is something that, regardless of religion, we all need to cultivate and practice. Dustin's grandma called the other night, and they were just having a catch-up conversation, and she said to him, are you guys going to church? Because when we first moved to Decatur, I was trying to find a church community, and we tried some on, and just none of it really worked out, and I realized this isn't for me. Organized religion just isn't for me. And he said, no, we're not going anymore. She goes, well, I just want those babies to know Jesus. And it triggered him so bad. And he's like, oh, it made me. And by the way, Grandma Porter is the kindest, sweetest.
Yeah.
She's so docile and so just good. She's just good. And he was like, I had to get off the phone with her. And I was like, why did that trigger you so bad? And he's like, I don't know. It just did. And I was like, she didn't question your parenting. She didn't imply that they're
Just
growing.
something
She
had
just
someone
stopped,
that she
yeah.
loves in their life too. Like,
just-
that's
That's
what
what,
it is.
that's what
That's
I
what I-
swap out that word. I'm
Yeah.
like, when someone says that, I hope that, like, I feel like it's no different than just saying, I just want them to know love.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's so many ways down that path and to that road.
And I think about, like, someone who is a vegetarian saying, I just really wish you understood what it meant to eat meat so you could make a decision. I just really wish you understood what it means to have LED light bulbs instead of
Candles.
Yeah. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, I just wish you knew. So I asked, I was like, why is that true? He goes, I don't know, it just does. And I was like, that's okay. I think they should get exposed to
Yeah.
everything, and then they can
Decide if they want
And
it.
if she goes and says, Mom, I just love that baby Jesus did blah, blah, blah. You know what, honey? That's great. I'm glad that brings you comfort. I'm glad. Now, am I going to let you make other people feel bad because they don't believe that? Oh, fuck no. No. We won't be doing that. But I'm not shaming her for thinking that Elsa and Anna really lived in, they
Arendelle.
really live in Arendelle.
Yeah.
I'm not pissing on Santa Claus.
Right.
Yet.
So I don't know. I think that being open-minded and questioning things and approaching things with curiosity is so much
Approaching
more.
things like your kids.
Yes.
Like that's one of the things I get jealous of, and that's I started to say this earlier is joy.
Joy.
I haven't been as happy as probably your son was when he got that Elsa dress in a decade, and that's okay. It's like you become a more narrow person in your emotions as you get older. But it's not because we don't know how to be that way. It's just that we see the world differently, and we understand that that's just a dress. It's just a dress.
It doesn't
But it doesn't change the fact that
Yeah.
joy is real.
So
Right.
And that's, I think that's what every adult is seeking, is to be as happy as a kid for a day or two.
Yeah, and to
And
try to
light.
extend that joy for as long as possible.
Yeah, just find ways to get back there.
Yeah.
Have those moments of the day where your biscuits are out and
And you're free and careless.
Yeah.
Carefree.
Yeah.
Just be
But
open
that
mind.
means shaking the expectations.
Yes.
I think
exactly.
this has been so helpful for viewers and listeners because many people sit in that ick of being like, this is what's expected of me from my spouse, or this is what my family expects, this is what my siblings, all the people, everybody has a list of those people, and to be able to say that there are so many different avenues and paths that we all can get there, and it's okay to shake them off and say, hey, I really appreciate everything you've done for me, but this isn't my path.
Well, and know that you do that to yourselves too. You put expectations on yourself, and you set goals for yourself that sometimes you don't feel okay not living up to. But understand that your expectations change.
Yeah.
You have the ability, the right, every moment of every day to go in there and go, that's not what I want to expect of myself anymore. And you want to be better,
And that's
or
growth.
be different, even. Yeah.
I feel like what you're talking about, Dylan, is growth, where you're
That's-
your expectations shift and change, and that is how we grow. And and some people are not. There's no comfort in growth. It's like, ooh, makes you
This
have.
is
It is
new.
scary.
It is. It's scary. It's like a mirror gets put up, and it's like, well, if he's growing and I'm still stagnant, or I'm still where I'm at, like then it makes another person uncomfortable to see a person grow.
Yep.
But I think it's a really powerful. All the stories you've talked about today have been so powerful to just make people be more curious and more open, especially if they have others in their lives that are trying to shake those generational expectations or the expectations that are on you or yourself. It's been a really good episode.
I'm glad to have been here.
Thanks again for coming on. It's been so cool having both of my siblings on. Next time, bring Roger. Okay?
Facts, I will, 100%.
All right, this has been another episode of Left at the Door.